epidemiology of musculoskeletal disorders and workplace factors. Yes, so we are still getting about this musculoskeletal disorder that are particularly related to the workplace. Yes, and how this workplace will affect the frequency of different musculoskeletal disorders and how different musculoskeletal disorders are frequent in different work groups. So, yeah. So, for example, possible workplace risk factors. Yes, this is not the everything, but repetition. As we said, our organism does not like to do repetitive movements. Only case that it is not bad for the organism is the ambulation. Yes, when we have those repetitive movements, but the organism is used to it. In case of the upper limbs, the repetitive all the time in the same position of the body movements are not as good. Force, yes, so the big force, of course, will lead to bigger traumas. Awkward posture can, if we are not comfortable, it tells something. Yes, our body sends the signal that it is uncomfortable because of something. Yes, because, for example, muscles are tense, and it may lead to further problems. Some vibrations, temperature too high or too low, contact stress, unaccustomed activities, lifting, forceful movement, generally applying of some force either of the worker or of something on the worker. Heavy physical work for obvious reason, whole body vibration, any vibration generally. Static work posture is so when the worker cannot switch positions of the body. This is related to any repetitive situations. Yes? So repetitive movements or repetitive positions as a static position. Handling heavy loads over longer periods, I suppose quite easy. Frequently repeated manipulation of objects, the same. Static muscular load, so when the muscles needs to be tense for really long periods of time, it's also unhealthy for them. Muscular inactivity, yes, so generally there are a lot of comorbidities related to inactivity. Monotonous repetitive manipulation, physical environment, yes, we already talked about too cold, too hot, but we can have also, for example, the ionizing radiation, yes, this will also lead to some diseases. Psychosocial, for example, when the worker is not happy with his or her job, it increases the risk of the musculoskeletal disorders. Combined or combinations of the above. And we can divide those risk factors into some groups, yes. For example, here we have some common ones, yes, so like individual, gender, genetics. Is genetics. Generally, when you can think about risk factors of anything, the genes will play a role. Sometimes very small, sometimes very big, but there will always be some role of genes. And in nearly all of the cases, there will be a role of environmental factors, yes, not only genes. Biopsychosocial, so everything, and non-work activities, yes, so if, for example, the worker is young parent and cannot sleep through the nights, it will also affect the work, yes, and the risk of some traumas, for example, in the work. So, musculoskeletal pain. Musculoskeletal pain with physical activity is normal psychosocial logical process. Yes, so energy is required to perform work. Work requires muscle to move. Byproducts such as lactic acid are created as potential energy and are turned into kinetic energy. So generally, it is also told by the coaches. Yes, no pain, no gain, and it has a very deep physiological build-up. Yes. The pain is inherently related with physical activity, and it is not always bad if it's not severe and if it's not chronic. However, if it is work related, yes, if it is chronic, if it is severe, if it leads to some abnormalities of the musculoskeletal system, there is a pathology that needs to be treated by the medical professionals. So, musculoskeletal pain is often separated into two categories: occupational and non-occupational. Of course, it's separated in such a way, mainly when we are thinking from our perspective, yes, of this subject. Musculoskeletal injuries are often defined as traditional traumatic injuries such as fractures, sprains, strains, dislocations, lacerations, while musculoskeletal illnesses are commonly called cumulative trauma disorders, repetitive motion injuries, or musculoskeletal disorders. Yes, so this is the most common thing. In order to understand the data, it is important to know the definition of injuries and illnesses. Yes, so according to international organizations, an occupational injury is an injury such as cut, fracture, sprain, amputation that results from the work accident or from single instantaneous exposure in the work environment. Minor injuries are defined as injuries requiring only first aid treatment. Yes, not involving medical treatment, loss of consciousness, restricted work, transfer to another job, and are not recorded in the logs. An occupational illness is any abnormal condition or disorder other than one resulting from an occupational injury caused by the exposure of the environmental factors associated with employment. Yes, so when we have some risk factors of the injury related to employment, and they will lead to some disease. This is generally the occupational disease. And occupational illnesses include acute and chronic illnesses, or diseases that may be caused by inhalation, absorption, ingestion, or direct contact. All occupational illnesses are recordable. This is just a requirement by law. Thank you.